topple over. As part of the tower breaks off, Steve ends up falling off the edge, just as the Funko Pop heard around the world predicted. Now, I didn't really think they would kill Steve off here.
No one, and that's the problem. No one thought they'd kill Steve off. Everyone and their mama knew that man Steve, it was safer than safe. Oh, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. Today I got another video from Silver YXU. This is his take on the finale. Stranger Things finale is a love letter to its characters. My opinion on the finale, I literally went, that's it. That was my knee-jerk reaction to it, especially because we spent 2 hours and 5 minutes on it with basically like 45 minutes of epilogue. So yeah, I was quite underwhelmed by the finale, although I don't even know if that's true, because the build up to the finale was kind of weak to me. But yeah, clearly he has a more favorable take on it. I can't wait to hear his thoughts on it. So without further ado, let's hop into it.
Stranger Things series finale did everything it needed to in order to land the plane and give us an emotional and
I mean, I guess the plane technically landed, but we definitely did a couple barrel rolls, a couple backflips before we got there. I don't know about. I mean, if you want to be extremely technical with his statement, I guess that's true. The plane technically did land, but you know, you would have liked for there to be a lot less turbulence on the way down. That's my take on it.
Satisfying conclusion to this show that we have been invested in for over 10 years.
I mean, can we really call it satisfying when there's a portion of the fan base that literally thought that there was some secret episode hiding in the wind somewhere because the finale was that underwhelming? I don't know. I just feel like Stranger Things suffers from an inefficient use of its time. And by that, they waste all of ours. And it's quite offensive to our time. You know what I mean? Like, but let me hear.
I think it was a great decision to focus so much on the characters' journeys, as at the end of the day, it's the characters that make the show special, and what made the audience fall in love with the show in the first place. With the final episode airing in theaters on New Year's Eve, the ending of Stranger Things really felt like a cultural event. The finale can be roughly divided into 2 parts, with the first part being the final battle, and the second part,
which was dog shit,
being an epilogue. I think the final battle was very entertaining, but ultimately had some noticeable flaws.
Terrible.
However, I think the epilogue was absolutely fantastic, feeling like a love letter to the characters, as the show takes the time.
I will say the epilogue was good. So while I am hating, the epilogue was good. The thing is, I just don't feel like it was really earned. Again, Stranger Things has a lot of good moments in vacuums. Things, as long as there wasn't something, if this moment was not connected to the shit I saw before it, I would even agree with them. But because it comes directly after it, like even how we all got here, these motherfuckers should all be locked up by the military getting tortured or some shit. What the fuck? Like, why did the military just choose to let them go? You either have to A, suspend your disbelief to even really enjoy this epilogue, or B, you're asking a bunch of questions and you're not even focused on the fact that, you know, the characters are having their moments. I was literally clocked out by the epilogue. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, okay, that happened. Like that's it. I was just like, my brain just wasn't into it. I just couldn't I couldn't jive with what was on the screen.
Time to fully allow the audience to say goodbye. I think the epilogue in particular does a great job of leaving the audience with a feeling of contentment and melancholy, as we mourn the ending of such an amazing show.
Again, I would point to the conformity gate people, which they are a bunch of dumbasses, to be fair. So if you wanted to argue that they're being irrational, fair. But my point being that ending, it wasn't satisfying, man. it surely wasn't. I don't feel satisfied. I guess the only satisfaction I got is to say that I finished the show. I guess if you want to put it in that regard, sure.
show
But
while still being so happy that it exists and what it has meant to so many people over the years.
Not gonna lie, I could have done without the last 4 seasons, man. Had we just stopped at season 1, my opinion on Stranger Things would be a lot different.
Stranger Things finale feels like the closing of a chapter, and like the characters, the audience finds themselves having to move on, while still appreciating the time spent on this adventure. I truly think the series ending is something beautiful, despite all of the flaws present in its first half.
Oh,
I think
definitely.
what people will remember is how the ending made them feel, and a lot of the nitpicks will not seem nearly as important.
Can you really call it a nitpick though? I mean, this is what we built up to. Yes, the epilogue in and of itself is great, but how we get to the epilogue fucking sucked. And I feel like that kind of sours the epilogue in a sense. Because again, it just doesn't feel earned. Moments are good, but how we get to these moments is trash.
In this video, I'll be talking about the Stranger Things series finale, and what I think worked and didn't work. I will be talking about the ending in depth, so I will be going into full spoilers.
One of us draws it to that canyon. The rest take positions on those
Man.
cliffs. Ambush it from above.
The episode wastes no time as we see the gang start to execute their plan to finally defeat Vecna. The plan sees Hopper, Eleven, Collie, and Murray split off and head to Hawkins' lab so that Eleven can enhance her mental abilities through the use of the sensory deprivation tank. I think a lot of the stuff that focused on this group in the final battle really worked well. It was cool having Eleven and Collie enlist Max's help as a spirit guide to navigate them through Henry's memories, as she has spent so much time in his mindscape. Where Holly ended up recaptured, it felt like Max had some unfinished business, and so it was really nice to see that the first thing she does when reconnecting with Holly was to give her a big hug and promise not to leave her side again until they are all out of there.
It is kind of funny because she ends up leaving her side again. Again, not her fault, but you know, it's funny how things happen.
Sweet sentiment, but one that doesn't end up being true, as not
Right.
too long after, she gets
Poof.
Thanos snapped out of Henry's mind.
And I'm not leaving your side. Ever again. Not until we're out of here.
5 minutes later.
Literally.
So that was a fucking lie.
I like
Right.
how they used Collie's powers to create the illusion that the kids had escaped, tricking Henry into revealing his true self.
For
and
a second.
effectively
Oh,
deprogramming
yeah.
the kids from their cult-like brainwashing that had been done to them. One of my favorite scenes in the finale is after Henry knows the plan from reading Eleven's mind, he shifts his focus to Hopper, invading his psyche and manipulating him. It's
This is
subtle
cool.
at first, with Hopper getting no response on his walkie, before seeing the chemicals that he used during his time in the war. Once again, Henry is showing Hopper the worst things that he has done in an
Yep.
attempt to frighten him and put him on edge. Henry earns his stripes as a master manipulator by first
Too bad he's extremely incompetent as a final antagonist. So even though, yes, he has good plays, they all get immediately undermined later when he eventually loses to L for the umpteenth time at this point.
showing Hopper Sarah dying before revealing him the plan Eleven and Collie have cooked
But
up.
I will say, in a vacuum, this was clever. This was clever. I cannot lie. This was clever.
to sacrifice themselves. He has seen Hopper's greatest fear, losing another daughter.
One daughter's dead because of you, and soon another. Show yourself!
And he uses this to turn Hopper into an obstacle for Eleven that she needs to overcome, as he will not cooperate if he knows she plans on staying behind to die. It was a genuinely jaw-dropping moment when, after winding Hopper up so much, Henry tricks Hopper into thinking
Yeah,
he just
he shot
unloaded a
L,
full
yeah.
clip into 11. This was
Again.
truly a great
W manipulation. I just wish they wouldn't undermine him so quickly afterwards. God, man, Vecna could have been such a great villain.
rug pull. As for a second, I was fully convinced Hopper had just killed 11.
Nah,
Hopper
I knew he didn't kill
unwittingly
11,
does
yeah.
Henry's bidding, as in his panic, he breaks the water tank and expels 11, Collie, and Max from Henry's mind. This was a really well written and exciting scene. I think this gave the storyline some momentum, as after 11 wakes up, Hopper makes it clear that he is not going to just go along with 11's sacrificial plan.
I will not detonate the C4, not until I know
that you are safe with the others back in Hawkins.
It's a genuine conflict between two characters that are both on the same side, but are dealing with different things, and have different priorities when it comes to what a victory looks like for them. Hopper has already lost one daughter, and he is not ready to lose another.
Bro, I'm not gonna lie though. I thought at the end of this season, man, I thought Hopper was with eventually early spoiler alert by the eventually where when Elle decides to sacrifice herself, man. I thought for sure Hopper was gonna go off the deep end, man. The way he was talking at the beginning of this episode, golly, brother, that brother was going through it. But ultimately, I'm glad Hopper ended up finding happiness with Joyce. But
The heartfelt plea about everything Eleven has to live for, the life she deserves after everything that she has been through.
For the happy days on the other side of this, for a world beyond Hawkins, for that day that you have a kid of your own. Because you deserve it.
Eleven is concerned with Kay and how the military will never stop hunting her to get her blood and to try and make more superpowered children, the consequences of which could be catastrophic.
If I'm alive, then so is Henry. I have to end the cycle.
She is intent on making sure nothing like this ever happens again, and she's willing to do whatever it takes to ensure that. I think the few conversations we get between Hopper and Eleven in these moments are incredibly important, as ultimately, I think they are the reason Hopper is able to make peace with Eleven's decision, as well as how Hopper's arguments for what Eleven has to live for, lending credence to the idea of her still being alive. In regard to the former, I think Eleven telling Hopper everything he has meant to her goes a long way. She asks him to trust her to make the right decision, and even if he might not like it, I think eventually he is able to make peace with it.
And I need you to trust me to make the right choice.
As for the
I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on the Hopper Elle dynamic, because we've kind of been doing the same song and dance for like three out of the last 4 seasons, and the only reason we didn't do this dance in season 4 was because Hopper and Elle weren't around each other the whole season. Yes, there's different little elements to it as Elle gets older, but I don't know. I just feel like Hopper keeps having to learn the same lesson, which I get it. The only problem is at the end of each season, Hopper seems to learn a valuable lesson, and then at the start of another season, he has to relearn a lesson that he already kind of learned already. So after a certain point, it kind of cheapens the lesson being taught. But I don't know. I'm just kind of mixed. But that doesn't necessarily, because it didn't necessarily make this scene bad per se. It's more like, I've already seen this movie before. Let's wrap it up. You know what I mean? Like, well, I guess the scene was okay. I guess.
The latter, I think Hopper's arguments were not only persuasive to Eleven, but also Kali, as once she hears what he has to say, she lowers her gun. This opens the door for the potential change of heart that we see in the story of the mage. I think the final scenes between these two are really powerful, and add to the circumstances surrounding Eleven's ultimate fate. I did think there were a few funny moments once Akers and his military goons attack the lab. When Eleven and Kali get blasted by the kryptonite,
he left her
Hopper
for
wastes
dead,
no
yeah.
time leaving
Said, "Fuck
Kali
that."
behind. Also later, when Akers is threatening to kill Kali
does save
in
her.
an attempt to get Hopper
Which
to give up
or he
11,
tried to
you
save her
know
anyway.
that wasn't going to happen in a million years. Hopper doesn't really
Hell
give a
no.
shit about Kali, so it was a
Absolutely
pretty
not.
easy decision for him not to reveal Eleven's location.
Like, come on now, dumbass. Like, what kind of crazy ass hostage situation is that? Give up your daughter for this other girl that you don't really know like that, and is trying to convince your daughter to kill herself. Like, nigga, the fuck,
A no-brainer.
I half expected Hopper
nigga. I probably would have shot Kali just to do the job for him, just to make it easier for him, motherfucker.
to offer to kill Kali himself.
Tell me where the other freak is. This one dies right here, right now.
I'm gonna kill her. I will not hesitate.
Right?
Kali's death was expected, and although I appreciate the intrigue she brought to the
It was cheap. Oh, hold on.
season, I ultimately didn't really care for her that much.
Okay, hey, me and you agree there. Did not care at all, and yet again continued another terrible trend that Stranger Things does. Instead of killing our at this point overgrown cast of main characters, we keep introducing new characters for the season or bringing in characters for a season that we all know are just there just to die. And they do it every year and it doesn't work, but they keep doing it. It doesn't raise any stakes for me, doesn't build any tension at this point. It's just there just so they can give that perception of danger without actually, having it be real, if that makes sense.
So I moved on pretty quick from her death.
Get over it.
We all did.
Okay.
And since I have mentioned the military, now is probably a pretty good time to talk about their role in the finale. I think for the most part, they were underutilized.
Yep.
They didn't factor into things much.
Not at
with the
all.
exception of forcing Eleven into a difficult choice.
They did
They
do
kept
that,
Eric-
and then the military just let all these guys go, even though they've broken. They know that they've broken into their base multiple times. I just don't see the U.S. military being benevolent enough to just let them go.
Mr. Clark, Vicky, and Max pretty early on, but it doesn't really lead to anything. I
Nothing
kind of
at all.
expected to see Kay interrogating them, or after knowing the party's plans, misguided as it would be, I thought maybe Kay would bring the military into the abyss to try and capture Henry, the original source whose blood has been proven to be able to duplicate his powers in others, as opposed to Collie's blood that was killing the mothers, or Eleven's whose blood was yet untested. The season felt like it was building to something for Kay and the military, and even
Only
though
for
their
it to do
existence
nothing.
forces Eleven into a tough spot, it feels like a pretty passive story purpose from the military side of things.
Yep, especially because we spent so much time. They spend so much time establishing the military's presence, and they're a constant obstacle throughout the entire season, only for them to get to this point and essentially do nothing. Hell, I would have even preferred if by some miracle we change the military's stance on thing and they help us. And they end up helping us take down Vecna. That would have been way more satisfying than the ultimate nothing burger that we got from the military being here.
Jumping back into Henry's mindscape, once Eleven, Collie, and Max disappear, I really enjoyed seeing Holly step into a leadership role, truly coming into her own after everything she has been through.
So follow me, keep quiet, and stay close.
I think her role in the finale works so well because of the scene that she shared with Max at the end of episode 6, with the show doing a good job illustrating how she has come to truly embody Holly the heroic. She even gets her moment when she fights Henry in the cave, something that she wasn't able to do earlier in the season as she was too overcome by fear. Speaking of overcoming one's greatest fears, Henry, the big bad, has a really powerful moment of doing just that. It's a little weird seeing such a villainous character have a moment like this because you find yourself almost rooting for him. Jamie Campbell Bower, who is absolutely amazing, really does a good job selling just how painful this is for Henry to even try and approach. Each step is slow, as his feet seem like they're made of lead. However, he truly believes that his plan to merge the worlds is what—
And this is another thing. They don't ever explain really why. From my understanding, Henry believes that the world is fundamentally broken. I get that. So he kind of wants to start anew. Is that the mindset? Is that the justification we're working with here? I don't know. That seems kind of weak reasoning to me to want to destroy the world. Or at the very least, I wish they would have shown more examples of, at least through his eyes, of the world's being broken. At the very least, it'd make his reasoning seem more compelling instead of him just coming across as this cartoonishly evil person that wants to take over the world or destroy the world type shit. I don't know. That could have been, and we could have spent time doing that instead of all the other filler stuff we spent our time on.
humanity deserves. And so with the situation so desperate, he finds the strength to do what he couldn't before. Henry is obviously a monster, but I think this moment does a good job to humanize him and his own internal struggle. With that said, I think the show very easily could have taken things too far in trying to make Henry sympathetic. Once Henry comes face to face with his dreaded memory, the show could have very easily taken all responsibility away from Henry and cast him as
Oh
another
yeah, I thought they were about to pull that bullshit. Ooh, I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they didn't do that. Oh, I was about to get so hot. I might have actually turned the TV off had they made it, oh, Henry's just this victim, and now he's gonna help us take down the Mind Flayer. I'm glad they didn't go that route. Ooh, that shit would have been ass, boy. I would have.
Victim of the Mind Flayer. I feel like this would have been really disappointing, and so I appreciate that they didn't let Henry
Same
off the
here.
hook
I'm
for
glad
the
they
things
didn't
that he
either.
has done.
Yeah, we initially talked.
I'm glad they didn't, because they were about to remove any agency Henry had in any of the decisions he's made the last 2 seasons. I'm glad they did not do that.
About giving him
As crappy as I believe the season was, I'm glad they at least stuck to their guns on something.
a moment where he can turn against the Mind Flayer and help them defeat it. And I think ultimately it feels wrong, and we didn't believe it. He is so far gone at this point.
I think that Henry is a victim to some degree, but he is also a victimizer, a psycho, and complicit in the atrocities that he has committed. Yes, the Mind Flayer was using him, but Henry was also using the Mind Flayer
exactly.
to make himself feel powerful and to bring what he believed to be justice to the world that he had come to hate. Henry could have fought back.
Yeah,
but he
I just wish you could have seen why he hated the world so much. That's really it. They could have spent time. The amount of, with how bloated seasons 4 and 5 are, they definitely could have spent more time diving into this. I guess his only real thing that we saw was the experiments, but I feel like he's had that mindset even before then. So if the experiments is the basis of him thinking the entire world is broken, I guess. But from what I remember, I'm sure he'd been that evil before then. Yeah, he was that evil before the experiments even happened. So I don't know. I feel like they could have fleshed him out a bit more.
made the decision not to, instead letting himself merge with the Mind Flayer as he agreed with it. They had a symbiotic relationship, and I think this adds an additional level of nuance to Henry's character that doing a full heel turn wouldn't have. Henry's "We Are One" line is epic and epitomizes their relationship. The main party of the final battle gets to have some really fun moments, and while I enjoyed them, many of the scenes did feel like they were
Ridiculous.
missing a little something. As they try to climb the
I don't know, tension, stakes, sense of danger, all things that seem important for a suspense thriller TV show, TV series, all that. Not to mention that the Demogorgons, nowhere to be found, even though this is the dimension that they're from. And no, I do not buy that bullshit excuse the Duffer Brothers brought that Henry didn't expect him to show up. That's a load of nonsense, considering he just went inside Hopper's mind and he knew that they were coming. Furthermore, how long does it even take where does he store all the Demogorgons in the first place for them to not be able to be at the final dimension? Either way, that whole plot line is a bunch of bullshit, and it's again another thing where you gotta suspend your disbelief or ask why they're not there while the action's occurring, and I can't fuck with it.
radio tower, things start to go wrong pretty quickly. It's a really cool moment as they are all looking up and see the abyss slowly get closer and closer to them. Where the tower isn't quite lining up with one of the gates, there's some tension.
Again, yes, this is, in theory, this should be a very tension-building and suspenseful scene. But because this show has built up so much bad will with their stakes building, we all know that everyone in this scene is going to end up fine. In fact, this final battle was so much of a joke. I'm skipping ahead to the battle, that not only does no one not die, nobody even gets injured. There is not one injury that occurs to the main cast during this epic final battle for this monster that we have been building ourselves up to fight for the last 5 seasons. I don't know how you cannot have a problem with that. Like that shit bothers me, man. God. It feels like they had the ingredients to make something great and cohesive, and they just didn't. it just didn't hit for me, man. It really
As
didn't.
the whole thing threatens to topple over. As part of the tower breaks off, Steve ends up falling off the edge, just as the Funko Pop heard around the world predicted. Now, I didn't
Yep.
really think they would kill Steve off here.
No
but
one, and that's the problem. No one thought they'd kill Steve off. Everyone and their mama knew that man Steve, it was safer than safe. Safe as hell, bruh. Safe as fuck. And that's the issue. Everybody knows this man Steve is not in danger. Why? Part of what made the show great in the first season was that sense of danger that was around all the characters investigating this shit. And here you've watered it down and what's the word? Sort of like softened it down so much and built up all this bad will whenever something dangerous happens that at this point I'm not invested. I saw this scene right here and felt nothing. And I think that's a problem. I think you've done something wrong when you've got one of your main characters. I like Steve a lot too. And I felt nothing seeing him dangling from this unstable radio tower and about to die. I felt absolutely nothing because I knew nothing bad was going to happen. I knew there wasn't even a chance of something bad happening. And that is problematic for when you're trying to build scenes like this. Because now it just feels like you're building a cheap sense of danger that's not actually real.
that didn't prevent me from having a moment of absolute panic. But
It did for me. It did for me.
Jonathan Byers comes to the rescue and saves Steve from a long drop and an abrupt stop. I think having Jonathan be the one to save Steve was the perfect decision, as despite all of the conflict and tension there has been between the two this season, when things really matter, they will step up to try and defend each other. I think Jonathan saving Steve's life also makes way for their conversation later in the Abyss, where they are finally able to understand one another, coming to terms with their differences and learning to accept what each of them brings to the group. I think the scene goes a long way in making the older kids' reunion feel more authentic, as this scene does a lot of work setting up a future friendship between the two characters.
Trying to build towards a makeup between and bromance, a little bit of a bromance between Steve and Jonathan. And then that led to the idea of him saving Steve.
Even though there was some good tension with whether or not 11 would be able to stop the Abyss in time.
No, there wasn't.
And before it knocked over the tower.
There wasn't, because even if 11, let's say 11 actually didn't make it, nothing bad still would have happened to them, because the Duffer Brothers, for whatever reason, are allergic to making actual consequences for the main crew. So no, I didn't feel any tension watching this shit. Maybe you did, and I truly do enjoy that for you, because maybe I'm just a party pooper who needs to learn how to have more fun. But me, I felt nothing watching this shit, man. I can't lie.
I feel like this scene could have been enhanced by just having a few demos present, whether it be a Demogorgon.
This whole episode could have been enhanced by having a few demos present, but that's besides the point.
Climbing up the tower and forcing them to fight it off as they try to climb into the Abyss, or having a small swarm of Demobats pestering them. I feel like this scene...
Yeah, remember when those existed for a season? Because they introduced them in season 4 and they never showed up again.
It could have been even cooler. That kind of brings us to the elephant in the room.
All right, here you go.
Or rather,
Yep.
the Demogorgons not in the room. The Upside Down and the Abyss just feel too empty, especially
Correct.
with this being the
The
final
final
confrontation.
battle.
I was expecting more like vines, monsters.
I feel like a few demos could have gone a long way and offered so
Definitely.
much potential for some really cool moments.
Mhm.
Once Vecna realizes the plan, he should call in the demos to try and
Easily.
slow down the party. We could have had a cool moment of Will controlling some demos to protect the group.
Right.
Or even having him control one of the demos to fight
To take the
others.
other ones.
When they are fighting the Mind Flayer, maybe Steve and Dustin could be trying to protect the others from some demos, as the others focus on the Flayer. Because as it is with their weapons, I don't feel like Steve and Dustin did all that much to hurt the Mind Flayer. They mostly just popped its pimples and got slimed. It's one
Right.
of those things where while I liked the final battle we got,
I
feel like
didn't.
there were a lot of missed opportunities to make it even more awesome.
And that's why I didn't like the final battle, because there were a bunch of missed opportunities and it was just way too easy at the end of the day. This was nothing. This is the big bad that we've been building ourselves to. And literally 4 episodes before this, we saw Vecna and a group of Demogorgons tear through the entirety of the US military. Yet somehow, the only 2 people here that are even trained to use a weapon are Nancy. I don't even think Hopper's here. So the only person that's even trained on how to use a weapon is Nancy, which shouldn't even matter in the first place. Because again, the US military got easily wiped out by the Demogorgons. So this shit made no sense, dog. Can't front.
Not to say I didn't enjoy the final battle, because I did. Seeing the pain tree transform into a massive meaty mind flare was so cool and really created a sense of awe.
It was a cool design. Too bad we did nothing with it.
As you wondered how they could possibly defeat this thing. Nancy going full Rambo to distract it as the others rained down fire was really awesome to see, with it feeling very reminiscent of the Battle of Starcourt Mall. And even though I don't think their weapons were all that effective, having Steve and Dustin using the Eddie spears as they scream "For Eddie" and fight together side by side shows just how far they have come this season and how they are once again completely in sync. Eleven facing down the Mind Flayer is truly epic as she tears a hole in it and comes face to face with Vecna. Having the final battle between these two take place inside a massive monster that the other characters are fighting is such an insane and cool idea. It was also a nice touch that Eleven was only able to defeat Vecna with Will's help, giving our resident sorcerer a hero moment in the finale.
I don't know. I just felt like there should have been more build up. I don't mind the fight necessarily ending that way. I just feel like there should have been more build up to that moment. There could have been way more strategized. Honestly, this fight has just a bunch of missed potential, as he has stated, to where that final moment, if we're going to end the fight like that, cool. It was entirely too quick and just uninteresting, really.
It was incredibly cathartic having Joyce be the one to do the finishing blow on.
Again, this is another scene because I agree. I agree that the moment that they were going for was cathartic. I think they mess up. I think they ruin the catharsis of it by how we get here, because the entire fight just felt unearned. And all their scenes, they're relying on scenes that happened in the actual good seasons of the show and all the trauma that is caused back then for it to actually even mean anything for me, really. That's the only thing that sort of made me feel anything, is the callbacks to seasons one. Well, seasons 1 is the only really great one, and season 2, while good, had its own issues. But the good, what I classify as the good seasons, it needs those callbacks for this scene to even work, because all the shit that we've done, we spent this entire season building up to, just kind of falls flat for me.
Vecna, as the characters relive all of the trauma that they have been put through. Legitimately, all of this stuff is great. I think the show shines once the...
Man, great's a strong word. Again, it's a good moment. It's some good moments surrounded by a bunch of dog shit. I can't hold you.
This battle is over, and we have small but powerful scenes, like the Wheeler siblings finally being reunited, or Steve cleaning off Derek's glasses. Even though there are a lot of issues with the final battle, many of which
Let's see. Other issues people had included climbing up cliffs too fast. No consequence to Will being part of the hive mind. Yeah, but you see what I mean? You actively either have two things are happening when you see this shit that's either making you enjoy it or hate it. You actively have to suspend disbelief for all that. Like, all this stuff is stuff that you've already established earlier in the show. Does that stuff not matter anymore? At that point, why do you keep bringing things up only for you to just take it back and all of a sudden it doesn't matter anymore? All you're doing is training the audience to not care about what you're putting on screen, since we all know it won't happen, or it won't matter later on anyway. Because genuinely, I didn't care about none of this shit. I didn't. I didn't care about this fight because of all, or I didn't care about this episode because of all this shit right here.
didn't even touch on, I still really enjoyed it and felt like it did enough to give us an entertaining climax.
You know what? Maybe I'm too negative. Maybe I need to start learning how to just take the good. But nah, man, I can't. I'm really trying to like search for the good in this, but it's just not, or accept the good in this. But no, there's just too much bad. The bad can't be ignored. I'm willing to overlook some bad. Nah, this is just too sloppily put together for me to really take it for what it is.
Thanks.
How do we know it's true? We don't. But I choose to believe that it is.
I think the epilogue is where the finale truly shines, and Mike and his journey of coming to terms with everything that has happened and finally being able to move on is at its heart. In a lot of ways, Mike is the audience's surrogate, as just like Mike, the audience is struggling to take in everything that has happened and to move on.
Well, man, you got the conformity gate niggas, man. That shit was crazy. But no, I don't think I was struggling like Mike to accept things because or hold on, let me really think about what I want to say here. I wasn't struggling to accept, the end of the show per se. In fact, if anything, I've been wanting the show to end for a while now. So no, that wasn't it. It just, everything just felt kind of pointless. Even Elle's sacrifice, I couldn't even feel anything for, because I'm just sitting there like this. And I don't want to disassociate with what I'm watching, but that's just what happens when you build up enough bad will between your audience and what you're trying to present to them.
On from this place that has been such a comfort to so many.
It'd be like a lie. Like I'm okay with moving on, and I'm not. I'm not okay with it.
The characters are mirroring the audience's own feelings, which I think really makes the impact and ultimate resolution work so well. We were on this journey with the characters until the very end, and they share some of our heartbreak as we leave this place and look forward to what comes next. Getting to the place of acceptance that Mike arrives at in the last shot is something that is extremely earned, as the show fully delves into everything that he has been feeling and how he tries to cope with what has happened. The final moments we see before the time jump is of Mike and Eleven's final farewell, before she makes her decision and vanishes before his eyes. Mike is heartbroken, having only a brief moment of relief, thinking Eleven has escaped the military's clutches before he sees what he believes at the time to be her death.
Yeah. I mean, and that's another thing. They do this weird thing where they cheapen Elle's death by presenting this theory. So now it's well, Elle's only dead if you believe she's dead. But if you think she's alive, then she's alive. It's sort of a choose your own ending thing, which I'm not even against per se. I wouldn't mind it if they hadn't already done multiple fake out deaths before, to where I'm pretty sick of them. So them trying to do a semi fake out death this time, I'm just not going for it, bruh. To me, I don't think she's dead, because the Duffer Brothers have shown they're incapable of killing their main characters. So I don't believe it. It's not necessarily because I want to believe she's alive, although I don't want her to die either, but I just don't think that the Duffer Brothers would do it. They don't have the balls to kill anybody off, if that makes sense. So I don't think that's a good reason for me to think that she's alive. Or, you'd want those moments to be more thought-provoking or insightful, instead of it just coming. To me, it just comes across as wishy-washy writing. And man, just stick to something. Even if I don't like the decision you make, at least stick to a decision. That way I can respect that at least. But this whole wishy-washy, is she alive? Is she not? I ain't going for it, man.
Yeah, that's sort of like Mike's biggest fear coming
true is like saying goodbye to 11. And then this is like the one time in the series that Mike has never had a plan, sort of, and that he like has absolutely no control over anything.
There's no doubt that Mike feels an intense level of guilt at these events, with him believing that he failed her. In retrospect, his hopes for the future seem childish, and he wonders if he were able to give 11 a more concrete and realistic plan, maybe she wouldn't have felt like she needed to make the decision that she did.
It was a fantasy plan. I should have had a real one.
To make matters worse, Mike was the one who built the bomb to blow up the Upside Down, and so in a roundabout way, he probably feels responsible for killing 11. I love how this moment and the ending of season 5 mirror that of the first season, with 11 sacrificing herself to protect her loved ones, as Mike stares on helplessly, unable to save this person he has come to care so much for. And just like season 1, 11's fate is ultimately left ambiguous, but it is also left on a hopeful note should you choose to believe. After the time jump and with the
again, that would have worked in season 1 because they hadn't built up all that bad will in me. Season 5, I'm just over it at this point, honestly. Is she dead? Is she not dead? I don't care. But if you were to ask my opinion, I don't think she's dead, but not because I have some giant optimist. No. The Duffer Brothers just don't have the balls to kill anyone important. They don't.
Party set to graduate high school, the next chapter of life is looming large as their childhood comes to an end. Most of the party have already begun the process of moving forward, but Mike feels stuck, unwilling to move on, as he feels like not only is he leaving his childhood, but he feels like if he allowed himself to continue on, he would be leaving 11 behind. I think Mike's conversation with Hopper is so important for a number of reasons. Firstly, Mike and Hopper are the two people who were closest to 11 and whose death affected them the most. I've seen some criticism for Hopper not being more upset over
I'm not mad at Hopper moving on. Although, like I said, I thought Hopper was cooked mentally. I thought he was going to spiral. I'm glad he didn't. You know, I'm always happy to see people recover from bad situations. So I am glad he was able to find contentment and happiness with Joyce and the Byers boys. So that's good. But yeah, anyone complaining that Hopper, you know, isn't I don't know, depressed or down in the dumps, man, grow up, get a life.
for 11's death, but I think his reaction actually makes a lot of sense. I think through Hopper's final conversation with 11, he was able to make peace with whatever decision she made, as he decided to stop treating her like a child, clinging on to her as if she were Sarah, and to trust her fully no matter what the result would be. He obviously is still devastated by 11's passing, but he is able to accept her decision as he knows it is what she felt she needed to do.
Find a way to accept her choice.
His experience with grief and being a little older and wiser also allows him to deal with the loss of 11 better than how he dealt with the loss of Sarah. Not only has he been through a similar process before, but where the first time he pushed everyone away and relied on drinking and drugs to temporarily relieve his pain, this time he turned to those he loved to help him get through it, as they were also hurting from the loss. He didn't try to hide from the pain, he embraced it.
And when life hurts you, because it will, remember the hurt. The hurt is good. It means you're out.
Man, it's too bad. Upon rewatch, this scene will mean absolutely nothing to me, because this was actually a really good scene in season 3. And you've retroactively undone it by having Hopper inexplicably survive. But that's topic for another video.
I also feel like Hopper and Mike are forever bonded by their love for 11, and going forward, Hopper will look out for Mike when he can, as he knows that 11 wanted nothing but the best for him. Hopper's advice about trying to find a way to come to terms with 11's decision, I think, struck a chord with Mike, and allows him to attend his graduation. I love how full circle the ending is, with the kids once again playing D&D in Mike's basement, just like how we started the show.
They needed to play a final game of D&D, and we wanted a return to the innocence of that first season. season once they've finally been able to put all of this evil behind them.
We get some really nice moments as Mike outlines the bright and hopeful futures of the party, with Lucas and Max falling more in love as they finally get to go on their long-anticipated movie date. Will embracing his sexuality as he ventures beyond small-town Hawkins, and Dustin going to college in pursuit of knowledge. And this is when Mike tells the story of the mage, revealing that Eleven may in fact be alive, her death being a trick that her and Kali.
Yeah. I'm not fucking with I'm not fucking with them making this theory a thing, but they did it. It just goes to show that even when you think they finally did the oh shit moment and we lost somebody, they still wanna sprinkle in some doubt in there just so is she dead? They wanna have that plausible deniability there. And to me, I think that's just cowardly. That's a cowardly way to write.
Planned. Fearing the military coming back, Eleven can't make contact with anyone, as if there is even a whiff that she might be alive, they would return in full force. I love how Eleven's fate was handled, as its ambiguous nature serves the story and the characters extremely well. There were things on both sides pointing to her either being alive or dead, but if I am being honest, I'm less interested in finding a definitive answer to this question than I am content with both possibilities existing. In the reality where Eleven did sacrifice herself,
yeah, I'm kind of there too. I don't really care which happened. In fact, anything them adding the could this or that happen, just pointless.
I think the story of the mage serves as a coping device for Mike to try and move on. Eleven wouldn't want him to wallow in misery and get left behind. She would want him to thrive and live a life they always dreamed of. I think in the reality where Eleven actually did die, Mike choosing to believe that she could still be out there keeps hope alive, as well as an element of childhood innocence. If it's true or not doesn't matter, so much as the fact that Mike and the others believe it to be true. In the reality where Mike is right and Eleven actually did escape, this also works narratively for a number of reasons. Eleven has had an incredibly hard life, where she was treated as a tool rather than a person, and constantly found herself having to fight for her life. However, she eventually found a group of people who loved her and treated her well, teaching her all of the things that life has to offer. After everything she has been through, Eleven deserves a future where she can simply be a person and not be dragged down by all of the evil of her past. In this version, Eleven gets to take the lessons that her friends taught her and go out into the world and simply live. Everything that Hopper says she deserves is hers to take, and I think there is something very beautiful in this ending. It also opens up the possibility, way down the line, for Mike and Eleven to eventually find each other. The Duffers have said that they have a definitive answer to Eleven's fate, and that they have even told Millie Bobby Brown about it. But I say, keep your secrets. I don't want to hear the official version.
Man, I don't want to hear these niggas say anything about this show, man, anymore, man. Like, anyways, it's just one of those journeys I went on. You go on when you're watching the show, see it through to its completion, but damn, what they had in the beginning was great, and I wish they could have either A, left it at that, or B, were able to maintain that greatness, but they did not.
Of events, because I think there's so much possibility left in the ambiguity. I think it's effectively dealer's choice. You get to pick what you believe happens. The scene of the party putting away their D&D books for what may very well be the last time is incredibly emotional. They're leaving the basement and their childhoods behind, going forward into the world, taking everything that they have learned with them. Mike's is perhaps the saddest, as even though he chooses to believe Eleven is still out there, moving forward is still such a hard thing to do. As they journey into adulthood, things will never be as they once were, and it's inevitable to miss this time of their lives, as it was so special. However, as he is climbing the stairs, Holly and her friends come barreling down in a rush of excitement as they start.
This was actually a good scene. I did like seeing, that passing. I always love shows. I always love when shows have that passing of the torch to the next generation. I don't know. I feel like that's always been a a thing that sticks with me in TV shows, so I did like that little moment. Granted, again, how we got here sucks, but hey, in this specific moment, removing the context of all the bullshit that happened before it, that was a good scene.
A D&D campaign of their own. Seeing the next generation still in this magical part of their life can't help but bring a smile to Mike, as even though his childhood is over, others will get to experience something similar. I think the epilogue was building towards this moment with Mike on the stairs, finally being able to smile for the joy of his childhood and his time with Eleven, never forgetting it, but finally ready to move forward. I think this is a truly beautiful moment and works so well. The reprise of kids in the background is absolute perfection. I also really enjoyed how the other characters' stories were wrapped up. Hopper and Joyce finally having their dinner at Enzo's.
Yeah,
and
that
Hopper
was cool.
Proposing
This was
as
cool.
they are ready to start the next stage of their lives together. The scene with the older kids reminiscing was also amazing, as we get to see where each of them has ended up. Jonathan and Robin are both attending college. Nancy has dropped out in favor of getting right into the workforce. I feel like her ending, not being together with either Steve or Jonathan, and
Like I said, I do prefer that. I am glad that they just had Nancy go on her own instead of her just switching back to Steve. I felt like that would have annoyed the fuck out of me. But yeah. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think that her and Jonathan needed to break up. But hey, it is what it is.
instead, choosing to carve her own way forward feels so authentic to her character, and it really feels like it couldn't have ended any other way. Steve also gets an incredible ending. After all of his growth throughout the series, he has found what he really wants out of life. He has a love of kids, and even though he is still waiting on his own 6 little nuggets, he has become a teacher and a Little League coach to help develop the next generation.
I love teaching these kids, you know?
He also still gets to go on those road trips that he talked about, as he is still very much involved in Dustin's life, the two of them continuing to go on adventures together. The conversation of them meeting up once a month to try and stay in touch, as they are bonded for life and can understand each other in a way their new friends can't, hit really hard. As you enter adulthood and become increasingly busy, it can be really hard to stay connected with people. I really love this moment, as it feels so authentic as they try to stay connected, even if the reality of doing so is incredibly hard.
Yes, we're moving on, but we're never going to let go, and we can always go back if we're ever feeling down. If things are ever feeling hard, we can go back and we can find that feeling again in our hearts.
The finale of Stranger Things wasn't perfect, but I think
wasn't perfect was an understatement.
it succeeded where it really mattered. It might be a controversial opinion, but for me, I will take a flawed final battle with an amazing send-off to the show's characters over the inverse.
If the flaws weren't so glaring, you would have more of a point if the flaws just weren't so like glaringly bad. Like this was, it was painfully bad, especially because this whole episode was 2 hours. Yes, the final 45 minutes was good, but again, it just doesn't feel earned. It doesn't feel like the show has earned like this ending for me to even like, as much as I may want to invest in this and be happy for them, it just feels like kind of Mickey, man. Feels like we were handed a victory. And I don't know, I just couldn't vibe with it, man. I can't.
Every single time. At the end of the day, what truly matters is the characters and their journey over the years. I think the finale nailed the characters' endings, as they all feel emotionally satisfying. I highlighted some of my issues with the final battle, but as time goes on, I feel like I will care less and less about the little plot holes, because the show got...
those plot holes aren't little. Granted, I'm not the kind of guy that likes to harp on little plot holes either. But calling the final battle a little plot hole is being generous. Is being generous. that word little is doing a lot of lifting for that sentence. I'll say that much.
Right, what truly matters. I think the Stranger Things finale is a massive success and offers fans a truly beautiful resolution to such a special show. This show has meant so much to so many people, and even though it is sad that it is ending, it's always still right there, and we can revisit it whenever we want. If you somehow made it to the end of the video,
I probably won't be revisiting it, but you know, it was a journey. Ultimately, I guess I am still glad I went on the Stranger Things journey, man. But it sucks that they just stopped caring about rules they'd set up, you know, actually planning things out with at least a bit of caution, trying to take into account things they've done into the past, or whenever they did do something, at least have a plan for the future. It just seems like they were playing everything by ear and mashing shit together, and it just came across as a giant clunky mess. All in all, my thoughts for this season and the last 3 seasons in general, it was just that it was a lot of good ideas, but there's a lot of good things that happened in them and a lot of good ideas that could have been formed, but with a bunch of shit crammed in between it. And to get to the good stuff, you had to get through a bunch of shit. And as good as as good as those moments may have been, I'm not forgetting about all the shit you put me through to get here. And for that, it didn't really work for me. I think the finale, you know, kind of dropped the ball. Super underwhelming. I mean, it was literally so underwhelming that there's a portion of people who are actively deluding themselves, or not anymore since that date's passed, who actively deluded themselves into believing a secret 9th episode is coming out. Man, how ridiculous is that? But yeah, man, that's it for my thoughts on Stranger Things, and that'll be it for this video. If you watched this far, it means you like the video, so like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and until next time, I'll see you again. Thank you.